So I don't know if this setup is going to work real great, but we're going to give it a go. I've got you set up above where my hands are going to be for doing this demonstration. So this is going to be our first video in our crochet along for beginners. There's a few things that you're going to need, as I said in the previous video. If you haven't watched that one already, I would suggest you go back and watch that. In the previous video, I talk about what you're going to need, as well as what pattern we're going to use for the crochet along. So today's video is going to be about the basics: how to hold your yarn, how to hold your hook, how to do a chain stitch, and how to do a single crochet. So those are the four basic things that we're going to cover during today's crochet along video. What you're going to need is you're going to need a crochet hook. I had suggested that you get a 5.5, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit there, a 5.5 millimeter hook, which is also known as a number 9 or an I hook. Okay? If you get metal, it'll work a little easier, metal or aluminum. Plastic and wood is a little bit harder. The yarn doesn't glide over the hook as easily. So you're going to need a hook. You're going to need a yarn needle, something with a large enough eye for your yarn to go through. You're going to need something that you can use as a stitch marker. I've basically got 2 bobby pins, but you could use anything that can actually loop through your yarn or hook onto your yarn. Pair of scissors, and of course your yarn. So for this video, I'm going to be using Red Heart Super Saver, and this is a worsted weight yarn in a 4-ply. The reason I suggested using either the Red Heart Super Saver or the Michaels brand yarn is because it's 100% acrylic and it's machine wash and dry. So it works great for beginners or anyone trying to learn, and it's a nice weight yarn to work with. So I'm going to use this one for today. So the first thing we're going to learn is how to hold your crochet hook and how to hold your yarn. The crochet hook can be held a couple of different ways. 2 of the most common ways to hold the crochet hook is you just grab it in your dominant hand with your thumb on the thumb pad with the hook portion facing you. Okay, the hook portion facing you. Holding it like a knife, basically, if you were going to cut something with a knife. You may find for control that this may be a little bit easier for you as a beginner, although there's lots of people who have been stitching for years that hold their hook this way. The second way you can hold your hook is from underneath, like you're holding a fork or a pencil. Basically, your thumb is still going to be on the thumb pad with the hook facing you, but you're holding this more like, you know, like a writing utensil. This is how I prefer to hold my hook. It's the way I was taught by my grandmother, and it's just more comfortable for me. But this is a totally preference thing. Whichever way you're more comfortable holding your hook, that's how you're going to hold it. Okay? It may take a few tries of attempting the chain stitch and attempting your single crochet stitches to figure out which way is going to be easier for you to hold it. So don't get frustrated if your chain stitches are not working out. Just rip it back out. Try holding your crochet hook the different way. Maybe that might make a difference for you. The second thing is how to hold your yarn. Your loose end of your yarn, some people have it so it's just, well, we're going to pretend this is attached to your crochet hook for the time being. Your yarn goes in your less dominant hand. This is the hand that's going to decide on the tension for your yarn. Some people will pick it up with just these 3 fingers, and they will take their index finger and loop it underneath. This creates tension on your yarn. Okay? and your hook would work against this portion of the yarn here. Your tension is being kept by your finger and by how tightly or loosely you're holding your yarn with these 3 fingers as your yarn is getting pulled through. So that's one way to hold your yarn. Grip it with your 3 fingers loosely and take your index finger and wrap it through. That can be wrapped through this way, or it could be wrapped through this way. Whichever way, again, is going to be more comfortable for you. The other way people hold their yarn, which is the way I hold my yarn, is I actually put it between my ring and middle finger, and I loop it around and then put my index finger through. So I actually have a loop here on these 2 fingers. For me, that works a little bit better because I find I have tension here at my index finger, but I also have double the tension here as it comes around between these 2 fingers and around my pinky. I find that creates a little more of a consistent tension for me when I'm stitching. So again, I put it through my ring and middle finger, I loop it down around and back up over my index finger. And that's how I prefer to hold it, but you can hold it either way. In order to start stitching, we have to have a way to connect our yarn to our hook. So that's going to be the first thing I'm going to show you. It's going to be a slip knot. We're going to create a slip knot. In your less dominant hand, you're going to hold your free end. The long end of your yarn, the end that's still attached to the ball of yarn, you're actually going to turn it over and create a loop so that the end attached to the ball of yarn is on top of the short end. Put your fingers through this loop, grab the end that's still attached to the ball and pull it through the loop. That's going to create your slip knot. By pulling on the end that's attached to your ball of yarn, it will tighten the slip knot. By pulling on the loop itself, it'll loosen the slip knot. So I'll show that to you once again. Hold the end, the short end in your less dominant hand. The end that's attached to the ball of yarn, you're going to roll that over to create a loop with this side on top. Put your fingers through this loop to pick up the yarn from underneath and pull that through the loop to create your slip knot. Okay, good thing about it being a video and not live, you can always rewind to watch me do it over and over if you need to. So now you're going to take your crochet hook, holding it with the hook portion facing you, and you're going to insert it into your slip knot and pull on the end that's attached to the ball of yarn to tighten it. Now you don't want this, really tight. You just want it snug. So the yarn can still move back and forth freely. You've just got a little bit of play there on the hook, but it's nice and snug. So that's your slip knot. So now we're going to learn our first stitch, and that's going to be a chain. Oops, that's going to be a chain stitch. Okay, just going to adjust the camera there a little bit. There we go. So in order to chain, you're going to hold your yarn whichever way is more comfortable for you. Okay, so pick up your yarn. Instead of holding your hook like this, you can hold it like this so that your index finger's free, and that will also give you something to hold onto your yarn here if that's easier for you. It's entirely up to you. With your middle finger, and your thumb of your yarn hand hold your free tail out of the way. Okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to yarn over. You're going to wrap your yarn around your hook to pull it through your slip knot. So how we're going to do that is you're going to take your hook and coming from the left side of your yarn, you're going to go under the yarn so the yarn ends up on top. You're going to turn your hook so that you're catching the end of the yarn with the hook, and you're going to pull it through the slip knot. That's your first chain stitch done. Okay? Now, you can hold closer to your stitches if you want to. That might make it easier. Again, you're going to yarn over by putting your hook going from the left side of the yarn underneath. You're going to catch the yarn with the hook by turning your hook. Okay? Pull the hook back through your loop. So now we have 2 chain stitches. You can see them on here. There's one V, there's the second V. Those V's are your chain stitches. So we essentially want to have 10 chains on our hook. So in knitting, if anyone's familiar with knitting, you would cast on stitches. This is essentially what we're doing. We're casting on the number of chains that we want to use for our demonstration piece. So for our practice piece, we want 10 chains. So that's 2. We're going to continue with another one. So you're going to yarn over by going from the left side of your yarn to the right underneath your yarn. Okay? You're going to go from the left to the right underneath your yarn. Let me get my fingers in here again. Okay. My goodness, I'm all tangled up here now. So we're going to go, here we go, left to right, underneath your yarn, turn your hook, pull it through. Okay, underneath your yarn, going left to right, that's what we call a yarn over, and pull it through. Underneath the yarn from left to right, turn your hook, pull it through. You're going to keep repeating that over and over. So this is called a yarn over. Yarn over, pull through. Okay? We're going to continue doing that until we have 10 chains. So we're going to yarn over, pull through. Yarn over, pull through. Yarn over, pull through. And how you count your stitches are you're going to count these V's. You're not including this loop that's on your hook. So you're just counting the rest of them. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there's your slip knot on the end. So we now have our 10 chains. So you can rewind this and watch it again if you need to, but you need 10 chains on your hook. Once you have your 10 chains on your hook, then you're going to single crochet. So that's a chain stitch. You've learned that. Now you're going to learn to single crochet. A single crochet, if you can do a single crochet, you can pretty much do any other stitch in crochet. These chain stitches look like V's, and that's because they have what's called a top loop and a bottom loop. Your top loop, because when you work your rows, you're holding it like this. So you're going to work back and forth these rows. Your top loop is this side of the V that's on top, and your bottom loop is the side of the V that's underneath on the bottom here. Or if you're holding it this way, the top loop is the side of the V's on the left, and the bottom loop is the side of the V's that's on the right. So a single crochet is worked by going into the top loop of each of your V stitches, okay, each of your chain stitches. In order to turn our work so that we can work back this row, back this way, we need to do a turning chain. And basically for single crochet, that just means one additional chain stitch. So we're going to make one extra chain stitch. So now you essentially have 11 chain stitches. Okay. If you're a beginner, it might be better for you to use a stitch marker. So take your bobby pin or whatever you're going to use as a stitch marker and hook it right on that loop that's attached to your crochet hook. This loop right here. Hook your bobby pin right on there. Okay? So there's the first chain from your hook. Here's your second chain from your hook. Into that second chain, I want you to put your hook through the top loop. So that's going to be the left side of that loop, just the top loop. So now you have essentially 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over. You're going to pull it through the first loop, and then you're going to pull it through your second loop, creating your first. Actually, that's a lie for me. I'm not doing this very well, am I? You're going to yarn over, you're going to pull it through your first loop. So you have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over again and pull through both loops this time. That now creates your first single crochet stitch. So we're going to do that again. Here's the next V. So here's all of our V's, right? We're going to go into the next chain stitch, which is this one down here by my thumb. You're going to insert your hook into the top portion of that V, that stitch. You're going to yarn over, pull it through. So you have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull it through both of those loops. Now we have 2 stitches. 1, 2. Again, next chain on your hook, or next chain stitch from your hook. Insert the hook. Yarn over. Pull through. So you have 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both loops. And as you can see, I'm holding my work, so when I'm pulling, it's making it a little bit easier. Again, this is a personal preference thing. You can either hold with your thumb and middle finger, yarn over, right? Or you can hold it with your thumb and your index finger and use your middle finger as the one that's keeping the tension on your yarn. That's going to be whatever is your personal preference, okay? So, next chain, insert your hook into the top loop, right? Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. You're going to do that right to the end of this chain. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. So there's 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over again, pull through both of those loops on your hook. Now if you happen to snag your yarn as you're going, let's say you yarn over and pull through, and then when you go to yarn over, it doesn't come right through and you end up catching, like something like this happens. You end up splitting your yarn and it's stuck. You can take your hook out, pull your working yarn back till you get this stitch exposed again, your loop exposed. Put your hook back in. Okay, pull your chain so that your chain stitch goes back to where it should be. There's your V. And just try it again. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. So you have 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both loops. So do this right to the very end of your chain. I hope you can see this okay. I put a piece of black cloth there so it will be easier to see the yellow against the black. Here we go, into this next stitch. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both stitches. Both loops, sorry. Insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. So this is your last V. You can see right there's a V. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. So now we have our first row of single crochet stitches done, and you can see each of these is a stitch. So the stitch essentially is made up of this little lump here, little bubble, and your V stitches, your chains are all running along the top. So now we want to turn our work so we can work back this row back to our first stitch again. What do we do when we want to turn our work? We chain 1 when we're doing a single crochet. So you got your 1 loop on your hook, you're going to yarn over, you got your 1 loop on your hook, you're going to yarn over, pull through, that's your chain stitch. Now you're going to turn your work toward you. And because if you're a beginner, it might be easier for you, you're going to put a second stitch marker on this loop on this side. Hook it right through there. So now, when you've turned your work, on this back side, you can see 1 stitch, 2 stitch, 3 stitch, 4 stitch. There's essentially these holes in between each space here. You see those holes? That's where you're going to insert your hook. Okay? So here's our first hole right here, right underneath our chain. There's our chain right here by this thumb. And there's our first hole. You're going to insert your hook in that hole, essentially underneath the V. So there's the V's, right, on top of our stitches. So you're going to need both loops of the V, the top and the bottom. So you now have the stitch on your hook as well as the loop on your hook. You're going to yarn over, pull through. So again, you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through. Both of those. That creates your first stitch right here, working our way back. Again, we're going to insert into the next hole, making sure you've got both parts of your V on your hook. Okay, you're going to yarn over, pull through, so you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all the way. Here we go again. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, so you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. If you find that this is too loose, you're pulling too much and you're ending up with big loops like this, just tug your yarn a little bit and it'll close up your loops. If you're finding you're too tight, pull with the hook a bit to loosen it up. So we're going to continue to the end of the row, inserting the hook into the stitch from the previous row, yarn over, pull through to have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. So I want you to do that all the way to the end. And of course you can rewind and watch this as much as you need to. And I'm going to go right to the end of this row. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that stitch marker at the end of the row. Now, here's the last stitch. This is why I suggested using stitch markers, because the last stitch can sometimes get lost. You know, trying to tell whether or not that's the V or this is the V. Well, you can see exactly where the hole is because your stitch marker is through the hole. So you're going to insert your hook. Okay, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. So you have your 2 loops, yarn over, pull through. You can now remove your stitch marker from there, and we have row 2 done. Again, we want to turn to work backwards. So we're going to make a chain stitch. Yarn over, pull through the 1 loop that creates your chain stitch right there. You're going to turn your work. You're going to put your stitch marker on that loop on your hook. So now we're going to work our way back again in every hole as we're going. So your first stitch is this one right here. See that V right there? You're going to go right into that first hole. Okay? Yarn over, pull through to get those 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through both loops. Now you've got your first stitch made on your way back. So we're going to continue. I want you to practice doing these single crochets back and forth with a chain stitch to turn for 10 rows. So you'll essentially have a square that is, or a swatch I should say, that's going to be 10 stitches wide by 10 rows high. And I want you to concentrate on the evenness of your stitches, your tension. If they're not all identical, don't worry about it, but this is just to get you used to the feel of crocheting. Okay, when you get to the end of your rows, remove the stitch marker, chain 1, and turn. So we're going to do this for 10 rows. I'm going to come back at the end of 10 rows and show you what we're going to do. So here I am at the end of my 10th row. That's 10 rows of single crochet. Okay? And we can see the holes here for each row as we go up. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows. At the end of your 10th row, we're going to end off our work. And how we end off the work is you're simply going to chain 1, but you're going to pull your loop so it's larger and remove your hook. And you're just going to cut your yarn right here and pull that the rest of the way through. That creates a little knot to tie off the end. Same as your little knot here at your beginning of your slip stitch. So there's our little swatch done. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to tie in your ends. Basically, you're going to take your yarn needle, okay, your yarn needle with the large eye. You're going to thread that with your yarn. Okay. And what you're going to do is you're just going to weave the yarn in through the top row of stitches here. This is the simplest way to do it. Okay, and just pull it through to tie in that end. There we go. And once you have that brought in through like that, you can just snip this end off. Essentially, you've just buried it in the work. Okay? And you would go back and do the same thing with your tail that was left from your starting point. So that's our first stitches that we needed to learn, a chain stitch and a single crochet. Now the only other stitch we need to learn for the entire crochet along is a double crochet, and I'm going to start another video now with the double crochet and we'll do the exact same thing. Double crochet is very easy. It is, instead of just doing a single crochet with a yarn over once, you're going to do a double crochet with a yarn over twice.